us last time, Merlin.
Oh,
We did start
did I?
early, but it's just ours say that it's a little bit earlier.
Okay, because I'm showing 7.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't ready for you. We are just about,
No, it's all good.
okay, we are live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. 7 o'clock is here. I would like to call our regular council meeting to order. In front of you, you have the agenda for this evening's meeting. Is there anyone that has anything to add or not? Again, we'll go through if when it comes to a vote, if anybody would like to vote in the negative, please speak up. Just because of all the screens, it will make it easier to do it that way, but I will call for the in favor and opposed. Okay, just looking for an approval of the agenda for tonight. If no one has anything to add.
I'll move the agenda. No, I'll second.
Sorry, who moved it?
Conrad can move it, I'll second it.
Whatever. Yeah.
Motion by Conrad, second by Richard. All in favor? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. You also have the minutes of our regular council meeting on May the 25th. Looking, you have the list there. Is there any errors or omissions? And if none, I would entertain someone making a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move that the minutes of the regular council meeting, May 25th, 2020 be approved.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Do we have a seconder?
Tom, a second.
Second by Tom. All in favor? Anyone opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes. There were 4 items that were talked at our last meeting. You have the list there in front of you. Is there, and the responses from administration? Is there any questions or concerns on that?
As far as my question about the lagoon smell, I'm just wondering if anybody in Sask Water is sort of an expert on that issue, and if they could speak to us rather than just our plant manager.
I did ask her if there was anybody who would have any ideas for anything that we could do. And she said the only recommendation they had was what we do with the dredging and the chemicals that we're using. But I can go to our account manager and ask the question for sure.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add in regards to this? Seeing none, looking for a motion to receive the report.
Curtis.
Curtis, do you have a seconder?
I'll second, Ron.
Second by Ron. All in favor? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. All right, on our agenda this evening, we have a delegation that would like to make a presentation tonight. Would like to confirm that they are present.
We are.
Okay. Ladies, did you get a copy of what the procedure is for the delegations prior to, or would you like me to explain it somewhat?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll just go through. There's just a little list here. What we'll do is we'll allow you 15 minutes for your presentation, no longer than that if you don't mind. If it's less, that's fine as well. At the end of that, we will open it up to questions from council and just go from there. We probably will not be making a decision, pretty confident, because we'll have to do a little research after the fact. But looking forward to hearing what you have to bring to council, and then as council, we'll ask any questions, and then if administration has any questions as well, we'll open it up after your presentation and go from there. Fair enough, ladies?
Wonderful. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So I'm Felicia Adams, and I am a teacher at Lakeview Elementary School, and I've been in Meadow Lake now for 8 years. And I recently joined the fundraising efforts for the community lodge, and I am the secretary with the committee.
Okay, I'm Alana Farr, and I am from Meadow Lake. I am the nursing unit coordinator at the lodge currently, and I have been on this committee since we incorporated in 2015.
So I'm assuming everybody knows about the lodge, but just a little background for those of you that don't. So the Northwest Community Lodge Association started in 2015, and in 2018 is when we became a registered nonprofit charity. So as most people know, we are a committee that is fundraising for all of the equipment and furnishings for the new lodge being built. Our amount that needed to be, or that needs to be fundraised, is $2.7 million. We are not close to that amount. So we've been setting up lots of fundraising efforts. However, due to COVID, lots of our events have had to be canceled, obviously. We are still out there getting donations, trying to set up online events in the meantime. But as meeting with our committee, as well as talking with other people in the community of Meadow Lake, to find out how they organize donations, we did talk with the committee that organized the fundraising events for the swimming pool. They informed us how the city had donated a lot for them to help with their fundraising. So tonight, that's what we are asking for. We are asking for a lot to be donated by the city, either on Carl, LaRock, or Gibson Crescent, to a lot that you would donate that we would be able to then sell to use that money to put towards the fundraiser.
And do you plan to sell the house outright once it's built, if it's built, or do you plan on selling tickets or something like that for fundraising?
Well, after talking with the committee that did the swimming pool, our plan is actually at the current moment not to build a house on the lot, but just to sell the lot itself. We did talk with Meadow Lake Properties as well as a bank in town. And just with everything that's going on with COVID and the stock market right now, we didn't feel entirely confident of building and selling a house. We thought it might be more successful and easier to just sell a lot that someone else would then build their own house on.
Merlin,
You're
mic
muted there,
muted.
Merlin.
Sorry, I muted because there was so much background noise going on. Seeing if you guys could read lips or not, honest.
No, not very well.
No, me neither. Just one thought is if the lot is donated and you sell tickets on the lot, there would have to be some sort of deadline or time frame that the lot would have to be, if you will, built on. Have you thought about something like that? Because I know as far as the city, if there's a building permit issue that has to be carried out within a certain amount of time. So I'm just wondering if you've thought of that side of it as well.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Marilyn. Our actual plan was not to sell tickets on the lot, but just to sell the lot from the committee. Not selling tickets. After talking with the committee of the swimming pool, they had expressed to us the struggles that they had in that area of selling raffle tickets in that way. So we had thought it might be easier and more successful to just get the lot donated and sell it that way. And I mean, we aren't set in stone on our plans. Like if your committee there or the city has any other ideas or options for us in that way, but what we're looking for right now, Merlin, is something that we can make a large amount of donation on. And this seems like a pretty reliable option in terms of getting a large donation.
How much money do you have raised so far?
Let me just grab that paper here. Pardon me? We are at 530,000. So we do have quite a bit to go, which is why we're looking at options for larger ways to make larger donations.
So you've indicated your choice of 3 locations for your lot. Would you consider any other locations in Meadow Lake if the city were to give you a lot?
I mean, we would, but when we have the printed list here in front of us of lots for sale, it seems that in that area of Gibson, La Rock, and Carl, it seems to be the only ones that we see on the list for sale that are available. We do see that there's a couple on Center, one on Second, but it seems that 2 are sold and 2 have offers on them already.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Diana, Tom here. How many lots do we have up in that area that are, been sitting, waiting to be sold?
I'm actually in my office tonight, so I can take a look. Like there's quite a number of lots in that
Yeah.
subdivision that are available. There's not really a shortage.
Yeah, that was sort of my
We
impression.
have the paper here in front of us. Yeah, we have the paper here in front of us. There's about 30 that are available.
This is from June 5th.
That should be pretty close. I don't think we've had any big sales in the last little while, last few days, so.
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
So Diana, I got a question. If we did donate a lot, is there any recourse that we could get a tax receipt back to the sort of nonprofit organization?
I'm not entirely sure if we could, but that's a question we could ask if you refer it to us to bring a recommendation.
No, yeah.
So Dan,
Like, for the city
I'm
to be able
assuming,
to get some sort of tax receipt.
But I'm not sure of the legalities because we're kind of in this together, right?
Well, and we can issue tax receipts too, so I don't know if we're also able to receive that benefit.
I don't know what benefit it would be. Yeah.
But we can ask the question for sure. And I mean, yeah, that you are right, Conrad, that where this committee, if they do fall short of their goal, then the local partners are responsible for paying for the furnishings.
Who
So
would get the receipt?
The city.
What?
Are you
well,
wondering if,
I don't know about that because we're halfers with the RM and being that it's scoped on
so I think the
going
comment
with
is because the city would be donating the land if there would be any benefit we could garner if we got a receipt from the
Yeah. I just,
organization. I don't think so, but it's a question I can definitely ask and have an answer to you guys for before you make a decision.
Do we
I think
pay
you
a
should
lot of
also
interest?
go talk to the RM about donating some land too.
Well, that would be my question because the fundraising committee, whatever they do not raise, the city and the RM have to pony up the 20% of the difference. So if the city's donating a lot, or if we're looking at donating a lot, would that be just the portion of the city's contribution of the 10% of the halfers with the RM, or would it go together as a group?
And just to correct Merlin, if what the fundraising committee is fundraising for is for the furnishings for the building, the city and the RM are responsible for 100% of what they do not raise. It doesn't go back to the Sask Health Authority paying 80% of what they don't fundraise. The city and the RM are responsible for all of the money that is not fundraised.
I think what Conrad's saying then is if the city donates a $50,000 or $80,000 lot, and the RM donates nothing, obviously there's a benefit to the committee, which is great. I guess the discussion would be down the road then as RM, where's your $80,000 lot? So.
Yeah. Basically, we're looking to make, if we do this, getting bang for the buck for our return, right?
Yes.
And we're looking into right now, if because we are a nonprofit charity, we're looking right now just if we can give you a receipt as a donation, because we give receipts for donations. So we're just looking into if we can do that.
I assume you could, but I just don't know if we'd be able to make use of the donation receipt. Would we, as a city, do
Right.
we don't pay taxes in a
Okay,
sense?
I
Yeah.
don't believe so, but I don't have an answer to that
No, it's a
question
good
right
question.
now. So it's something that we can get an answer to, but I don't believe there's any way for us to claim it because we don't pay income tax.
Yeah.
All right, does anyone else have any questions for Felicia and Alana?
So basically, any of the contractors that you talked to, they weren't interested in building a spec house, or you just thought it was too much work to?
So what we did is we met with Meadow Lake Properties, and they were willing to build us a house on that lot at their cost. Our only concern with that would be putting the money up for the house, and if it doesn't sell within the time frame that we need the money for the lodge, then we weren't sure how that process would work. But I mean, definitely an option that we can still look into in terms of donations from other places in regards to Ace Home Hardware, North Sask donating things towards the build of a house, which would definitely help to get the cost down.
Yeah, and you probably, when I first looked at the proposal about the house, I thought that would be a way to sort of multiply your revenue by, selling a lot's one thing, but having a house on it that has a value, and maybe if you've been able to build it at a very reasonable or at cost or whatever, multiply you multiply your value quite a bit, I think.
Absolutely. And that's definitely something that we're looking into. We just kind of wanted to do first steps here. And I think the first step for us is, getting that lot donated, then look at the other options afterwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
When the swimming pool built their spec house, they had a lot of labor that was donated to build the house. Would Meadow Lake Properties be interested in sharing any workers in that way, or?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we would talk to them about, and, meeting with Al and Chris, they were pretty receptive to helping out. So I'm sure that's something that we could, look at and work out.
Would there be any chance of a combination where you would have the lot and then the promissory note from Meadow Lake Properties that they'll do it at cost, and Home Hardware will throw $10,000 worth of supplies in, or Ace Lumber, and you had the electrician was going to volunteer his, you could sell the package so that the $500,000 house is now down to $300,000 for the person who bought it. You could.
For sure.
You wouldn't be I don't know if that would all work, but if you could get the labor saying, I'll donate to this house, and then they would be, if you kept track of those donations and then said, now they total $150,000. So that's what we want for the commitment and the lot. Just an idea.
Yeah, and all of those,
yeah,
all
absolutely.
of those people would be able to use a tax receipt. All of those people, for sure. The donations there.
Yes.
The donations of material and labor, right?
Yeah, that stuff would be, they'd be able to use tax receipts that could be issued then, as opposed to the city. Yeah.
And that would be the package you're getting is the lot and all these donations. And then you can
And-
put your own house together, whatever you want, and you know what you're getting.
Mhm.
Trust the different suppliers and the electricians and the plumbers. It might be a way of not risking $400,000.
And maybe incrementing the value of the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other,
Makes sense. Okay, not trying to rush things along, but does anyone else
That's
have
okay.
anything else to add? Nothing further to add? All right, Felicia and Alana, thank you very much for coming out. We will mull this around probably a little bit later, and in the next little while, we will chat with administration and get back to you with an answer one way or the other.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, take
Thanks.
care. All right. Thanks for that. We're going to move on to City Manager's Departmental Overview Report from Diana.
I will just leave it open to questions if anybody has any.
Okay, there's a fair bit of information here. If anyone has any questions, bring it forward now, and Diana can answer them. No one has any questions? All right. We're going to move on. Looking for a motion to receive Diana's report.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ron. We have a seconder.
I'll second it.
Second by Conrad. All in favor? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. Thanks, Diana, for putting that together. I know the last couple of weeks have been fairly busy with the COVID stuff, but appreciate what you did there. All right, moving on to the draft Parks and Recreation Board minutes. You have a copy of that in front of you. Looking for a motion to receive the draft, and then if anyone has any questions, we can bring that up before we.
I'll make the motion, Tom.
Okay, motion by Tom to approve the rec board minutes. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second, Ron.
Second by Ron. Tom, do you have any questions?
No, I don't know.
Ron?
Nope, no questions here.
I'm just wondering
I
with
just have
the,
one which.
I was wondering
Go ahead,
about
Richard.
the grants that were approved there. It really doesn't tell anybody that's not on the rec board what the grants were for.
Yeah, I did notice that about the resolution that was passed at the board. I did because I got called about the allocation by the media. I have the applications I can send out to council if you'd like to see more
Sure,
detail.
it'd be a little clearer if, in future minutes if it's listed in the minutes.
Yeah, I can make that note.
Yeah, it's just a thought, like, for example, Parks and Rec Department, what did they gain out of it? There was 2 Meadow Lake Chamber of Commerce ones. I'm pretty sure one was for Canada Day celebrations. I'm not sure what the other one was for, just so we have an idea of what it is, if
Yeah,
that's all right.
we can make sure that that gets included when they pass their resolutions by our
Awesome.
2 or 3 members who are on the board.
Okay, sounds good. Any other comments in regards to? Okay, all in favor of receiving the board minutes from Parks and Rec? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. Thanks to Conrad, Curtis, and Glenn for being there. All right, moving on to NODCA minutes. Looking for a motion to receive the minutes of the last NODCA meeting on the 28th of May. Glenn and Diana were in attendance.
Jessica?
Sorry, what?
Jessica was there as well.
Oh, Jessica was there as well? Okay, there she is, yep. Looking for a motion to receive.
Curtis,
Motion by Curtis, seconder,
Conrad,
second by Conrad, thank you. Curtis, do you have any questions that
nope,
you would like answered? Conrad, do you have anything?
not really.
Okay, Glenn, do you have anything else to add since you were there?
I think the major challenge they're facing is the purpose of the group. And Jessica has since forwarded the goals that were set previously, and the group needs to take a look at what their purpose is and what goals and what they want to accomplish. We are doing some lobbying with the government on different paving or, streets and, or excuse me, highway. But we are trying to, we need a focus and a target, and that was expressed by a couple board members, and that'll be the ongoing challenge, is to do something.
Yeah, when I read through, I felt like Loon Lake was maybe reaching out for a little bit more help and support and actually what it's all about. So sounds like that has been addressed for the time being, and look forward to maybe working together with them a little bit more. Okay, any other comments? Okay, all in favor of receiving the NODCA minutes? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Council committee reports. I'm just going to go through my list here as you appear. Ron, do you have anything on committee reports?
Nope, not.
Okay. Richard?
Absolutely not.
Conrad?
No, nothing.
Tom?
No, I don't either.
Glenn?
We had the Northwest Regional Waste Management Authority in a face-to-face meeting. So was North of the Divide face-to-face, and I enjoyed that process. It was held out at Rapid View in the hall, and 6 feet of distancing was able to be maintained. The waste management did we haven't had a meeting for a couple months, so there was quite a bit. Enviro was there, and I think that he's satisfied with the way things are started up, and I think that our manager is pleased with the way things have started up, so that's off to a good start. One challenge that the waste management faces is what to do with mattresses, and if we haul them to Edmonton, they're $25 each. I think we're collecting 10 or 15 right now for everyone. So they looked at a shredder that we can bring in and for a week and do the 2 or 3 year surplus that we have laying around out there, and it shreds everything. Amazing machine. So we're hoping to bring that cost down closer to $10 and maybe look to see if anybody else has any other mattresses. So we're going to rent that for as long as it takes to do it. You can do 100 mattresses an hour.
Holy Dinah.
I said it'd be hard to maintain. They said, well, some do as many as 170 an hour. So you put it in the hopper and it just grinds them up. So it's quite a machine. So that's one thing that was discussed. We did have the financial statement. It's hard to tell. The accountants won't tell you if you made or lost money, but There is $921,000 in cash or cash equivalents. One thing that's happened is that we have paid off a lot of long-term debts, the rebuild of the Packer and the cell. That's the good news. The bad news is the liability of the closure of the site is something we have to contribute to. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. It seems to be doing year to year doing okay with those long-term debts. That 900,000 may sound like a lot of money, but a new Packer's $1 million. So it's in a business that size in the operation, it's a nice cushion to have, but not too much. Did talk about if we're going to start putting away $135,000 a year for that shutdown 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, we should be reviewing our investment policy and seeing if we can get a better rate of return. So that was mentioned, although it's early in that process, so it's not quite so important at this time. I don't think there's a lot of other items there that would be worth sharing with you. So that meeting was held, and things are clicking along out there, and with new management, they seem pleased with it. So we'll continue to be part of that. People are wanting to join again. There's become members, and we have declined that. We're not sure why we would water down the control and the management of it. So whether that's something we're going to review in July, is the associate membership and what rate they would pay. And I think we're leaning toward non-voting members from now on if people want to join. So that's a challenge that we're going to discuss and figure out what's best for the. And with that, I'll leave it.
Just a question, Glenn, like what the communities that would like to join now, why would you not want other communities to join? Like, what is the benefits and what are the pros and what are the cons?
Well, if you let 10 new communities join, you may get some per person. There's a fee to figure out how much they would pay per capita, and you would have that a one-time profit. But right now the members pay $85 or $80 a ton, and $120 is what the other non-members are paying. We went from so I don't think we make more money by giving that discount price to everybody that comes along and says, okay, we'll let you join and you now get the discount. And in 3 years, won't have made any money with it. So if you put on your business hat, we should take a look at what might be best for our ratepayers and those members that join. So we all represent communities paying into it, and what would keep their fees lower and make the most money. The second argument is you lose control, and then the rates will be set by the 10 new members, and the people who stuck their neck out to build it will have no more authority or control. And the city of Meadow Lake being the largest and only one vote is already interesting, with 11 members, or forgive me, I don't know the number of how many are there. Be one of 20 really waters down our vote. I think they recognize, the people there know the history, when they appreciate that they want Meadow Lake part of that. But if we water that down and we're one of 20 or one of 30, we don't wander in there with a lot of authority. So I think there's a couple disadvantages to continue forever to add to it. So business hat, I don't think we're going to make any more money that way. Secondly, for the city of Meadow Lake, we'll water down our voice even more than it already is, disproportionate, that Dorantosh and Meadow Lake each have one vote. And that's fine. It's certainly Dorantosh, there's been no decisions to say, let's pick on Meadow Lake. That doesn't happen at all. It's a good system the way it is, but I wouldn't be tinkering with it. And the communities, as I take a look, I'm not sure how many want. Macwasahegan was the one I think that was asking most recently. And as the First Nations are required to do something, they do have the choice of building their own, which then that could change our business model as well. So
Mhm.
if we don't want their business, it's just a matter of what's the right balance. So, and what I'm quoting here is my opinion, not what was discussed at the meeting. Like that wasn't, we haven't decided what we'll do with that. So that's my personal opinion, but that's what I would go with. I did mention at the meeting, what do you think would make the most money for the Waste Management Authority? And that second voice of Meadow Lake not getting watered down, the topic I want to bring up.
Okay, no,
That's a little tough.
yep, fair enough. I just wanted to get it,
Yeah.
like the pros and cons, just so everybody could hear.
So Glenn, I got a question. Have you considered like maybe any new members being associate members where they don't have voting rights?
Yes, that was a phrase that was used. I think that's probably the way that they will go. That was mentioned. Now, what fee do they pay per ton?
Well, you
Do
said
they
the fee
charge them
is, you know,
do we
I mean,
charge them
it's
per
just
capita?
something like you're talking about, you know, getting watered down, like, you know, if you go by per capita, Meadow Lake and Dorntosh each have one vote. So like you were saying, if you allow 10 more communities to be involved, all of a sudden, you know, they could basically take over. And, you know, the founders of the waste management facility should be the founding members. And, you know, I was just thinking of associate members, so.
And the government structure, like the bylaws and stuff like that, do allow for associate members. What the board needs to discuss is what Glenn said, what the fee they would pay. They likely wouldn't become associate members to pay the out of authority fee, but we also wouldn't necessarily give them the member fee for the associate member rate. But that's the discussion that the board would have.
There is some room there between the 80 and 120 and whether we charge per capita when they join. And the per capita is difficult to nail down in some communities as well. The First Nations don't always, they have an off reserve at who they count, who they don't. So that's got to be hashed out. And that's why we delayed the answer until July as we go home, think about it, come back. And associate membership, I think, might be the answer. It was mentioned, and I don't know what the rate, how do you make it attractive so they don't build their own and they do business with us and we can still, I don't know what it costs us per ton. They were going to ask the accountant, what does it cost us per ton a year? We're charging 80 to our members, and I don't know if it's 75 or 65 or 85. It seems to be elusive when you've got depreciation of $1 million cell and $1 million machine and all of that accounting, you know, what's in it. So it's not as easy as it should be, but so get a handle on that, take a look and get that information, and it's a really good table, so they'll come up with a good decision.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. Any other questions for Glenn on that? Okay, moving on. Curtis?
And to report.
Okay, thanks, Curtis. I had a few things going on. I'm going to go back. I think it was a couple of weeks ago after our long-term care meeting. The province had decided that they were not going to release a statement as to what's going to be happening with the enriched housing residents. Diana and myself and the RM got together and there was a letter drafted, was sent to Jeremy, as well as the two head people with the SHA that are looking after the long-term care facility, as a heads up that the city would be releasing this news media at the end of the day. I had texted Jeremy just to give him a heads up that this was en route, and within 10 minutes he said, hang tough, and within, I believe it was about an hour and a half, Diana, we had a confirmation from Jeremy that he told the SHA to make a statement in which I actually haven't seen it yet, but they had agreed with the statement that Diana had prepared. The statement itself was very meek and mild as compared to what it could have been. We'd been waiting for 10 months for a statement for a direction. We knew that the enriched housing was not going to be a part of the new long-term care, but they were working on it for 10 months to get a communication strategy just so that the residents and the families of the residents knew actually what was the plan. So just want to thank Diana and Jessica for putting that together. A couple of phone calls to the right people, a couple of texts, and seem to have got things moving down at the other end. And
Merlin, my only addition to that is that I believe they sent out the notification to the people who live at the enriched housing. So they did notify the residents, which was one of the concerns. So
yeah. And just to expand on it, there was they weren't formally told what was happening with all the social media stuff going around and coffee shop talk and this and that. We felt as leaders, if you will, the RM and the city, our residents have a right to know what's going on. So like I say, 10 months of promising that they were going to do something, and then they turn around at our last meeting and said, oh, we're not going to release any statements. Didn't fly very well. So thanks again for putting that together and getting that done. We've been on city mayor's meetings with the COVID the last couple of weeks. Our one tomorrow is actually canceled or postponed. Normally we have a meeting in the morning and then a meeting with the Minister of Government Relations, Minister Carr, in the afternoon. She was unable to be available for a meeting tomorrow. So we had our meeting this morning at 9. They are looking at moving into the next phase of opening. There will be updates probably on a daily or every second day or every third day. Just things that they're tweaking, that they've decided that maybe things can move ahead depending on how things go. The numbers have been low in the last quite a while. Today, I believe it was 4 cases. The Northwest was opened up today. One thing with the Minister Carr meetings, this mayors and the city managers have requested the reopened Saskatchewan plan is like a 75-page document, and by changing every 2 or 3 days certain little items, it makes it really tough. I don't like reading 75 pages every day, so we had made a formal request at our last meeting that can you just give us the Coles Notes version of what the changes are so we as a city know what's going on. Not just Meadow Lake, all the municipalities, rather than just kind of sneaking, I shouldn't say sneaking them in there, but making the change, putting them in, and expecting the administration and everyone to be reading all the little tidbits. So that's one thing that they're in the process of doing. So look for some fairly big changes by possibly by the end of the week. Like I say, they're going to be doing changes daily, every second day, and they will be updating us and going from there. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Looks like the pavers have stopped a little bit, but I see they were out working this afternoon on 9th or on 5th Street south of 9th. So I haven't heard any negative comments. I'm not sure, Diana, if you've heard anything back from Rocky. Positives, negatives, just a reminder, if they're working in an area, be safe and stay the heck out of their way, and they can work that much faster, much more efficiently. That's about all I have. All right, moving on to, we have a notice of proclamation. I signed a proclamation on the 4th on behalf of the City Council and citizens of Meadow Lake. I hereby proclaim the month of June 2020 as Pride Month in the City of Meadow Lake, dated on the 4th of June 2020. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, moving on to correspondence. We have one item in correspondence. Looking for a motion to receive. It's from Stars Municipal Funding Request, or from Stars Area Ambulance.
I'll make the motion to receive it, Merlin. Tom?
Okay, thanks, Tom. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Glenn.
Second by Glenn. I don't know if there's a decision that we have to make at this point in time. They're just reaching out because they have the stats of how many times that they've been to Meadow Lake in the last year. Basically, they're just looking for municipal funding to help the STARS program carry on. If I win the early bird prize of that $348,000 early bird prize, I might put a little bit back towards them just as a heads up.
They, just as a follow-up, we have got this request for multiple years every year.
Yeah.
And council has never made the donation. Other communities do. So really it would be up to council to make that determination. But this request has come before council before, I think, on an annual basis.
So I thought I read in there, Diana, that they were willing to come up and do a presentation or something. Is that, or was I dreaming that?
I would ask Jessica. She received this correspondence, so.
Yes, they were planning to come up with presentations this spring before the pandemic happened. But they said they could do a presentation virtually if you wanted one. I did mention in the conversation that council would, like, their year budget for this year is set. If anything, this would be a 2021 budget consideration.
I was actually quite surprised at the number of flights. When you look through there, we've actually had quite a few.
Was it 15 last year?
12 or 15.
No, 12 in 2019 and 15 the year before.
Yeah, and when you look at some of the other stats, there are a lot of other communities like the city of Moose Jaw had about the same amount of flights or something. So anyway, it was just something I noticed.
Yeah, I think that might have something to do with their locality
Ambulance.
to ambulances and their cities being that much closer to
fair
emergency care. Yeah. Okay, so I would probably just offer a suggestion that if maybe we could reach out and say, I know Jessica, you had mentioned that budget time. If I don't know if we can put it in our back burners just to keep this in mind for October or September when we have our October, I guess, our pre-budget meetings and stuff like that. If we're interested. Did we vote on that, Jessica? All in favor of receiving the correspondence? Anyone opposed? I don't think we voted on that. All right, moving on to council inquiries. This is where council has the opportunity to ask administration any questions or pass on kudos or non-kudos. And I'll just go down the list, start at the other end. Curtis, do you have anything?
Yeah, I've got one thing. I had a conversation or phone call from the volleyball committee. I guess they got a little bit of a grant from the Parks and Rec Board, and sort of wondering about the location of said court. I guess we thought it originally, or I thought originally it was going to be in Lions Park and stay there, but I think Diana's nurtured a little bit of the conversations between the Lions Club, the group, and hopefully the city's perspective on on that, but I just wanted to let council know that it's a floating piece. Myself, I'd be in favor of putting it in Lions Park, continuing the draw to the park. I think it's an important part of our community. It's the hub of our community and bringing people together. There's got to be some room in that place, Lions Park, for the pits.
And just as a follow-up on that, Curtis, the Parks and Rec foreman and the representative from the beach volleyball committee or association or whatever it's called are going to meet this week, and they're going to come back with a recommendation of a location that I can bring forward.
Is the Lions Club part of that conversation?
The Lions Club is going to be part of a separate conversation, but we're fairly certain that the conversation that was had was about funding, not about location.
I think at one time this beach volleyball club was talking of on the west end of the schoolyard by Jubilee, and I said I don't know if that would fly with the school division. So it kind of makes me wonder or think how or why they can apply for a grant if they don't even know where they're going. Is that not one of the prerequisites?
So there was a process where the Parks and Rec manager and the Parks and Rec foreman were considering this as a proposal. For those who are around the table 5 years ago, we got the request, and what the response was to the same individual was to go and see if you can get funding for it, but we didn't have a concern with it being in the park. Maybe go talk to the Lions Club. So they were able to nail down through Sask Lotteries the funding for the nets and the poles. There has been a donation to do the earthwork, which originally was going to be the most expensive part of the project, as well as the possibility of a donation for the sand for the beach volleyball. So when council had considered this request, we had indicated not opposed to it going in the park, but the city's not going to fund the endeavor, maybe go talk to other funding partners. So they did come back a number of years later with, as I said, donations of an equipment operator to do the earthwork and somebody to do the sand. And then the cost really of the nets and the poles is minimal when you take those out of it. I think they got a grant from the Parks and Rec board of around $2,000.
Okay. So, for example, if it does go up in the Lions Park, the Parks and Rec department would be required to maintain it. Is that correct?
Yes, this would become a city asset, much like the tennis courts were built with donations, or even the upgrades to the soccer pitch for the Sask Summer Games, and those kind of things that become legacies to the community.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else, Curtis?
Oh, that's it.
All right, thank you. Glenn? Nothing? Okay.
Mute his microphone.
I'm a lip reader. Tom?
No, nothing, Merlin.
Okay. Conrad?
Nope, nothing substantial.
Richard?
I have 3 items. I just want to bring up again the Center Street and some other, it has a lot of traffic, and other side roads are still a lot of small potholes, depressions and cracks. You could still use some cool mix.
Okay.
Number 2, although the amphitheater is only used on rare occasions, there are some pieces of stone facing on the inside that have been broken off and should be put on our maintenance repair list. And I was just wondering if we maybe should look at some solar security lights there to protect the asset.
I think there is a piece of rock missing up on the top end as well, Richard, when I rode by there the other day.
Yeah, there's one piece up on the front.
I did have a conversation with the Parks and Rec foreman about some missing stones, so I believe that it is on the list, but I'll make sure that it includes the piece up front, and I'll report back to council and confirm that.
All right. And number 3, a new dust control product was mentioned at the NOTCA meeting, and I'd like the city to investigate alternative road surface treatments for gravel streets. for the 2021 budget meeting. A report comparing the application costs by a contractor on a per kilometer basis, the lifespan of the product, and how much savings and maintenance we would incur over so many years would be useful. I do have some information that I could give the engineer already, and some municipalities like City of Milford have already switched to newer products.
Thanks, Richard.
Diana, with that
We did-
product MG30, check with the Northwest Area Transportation Planning Committee. They did a whole pilot project of that out at Hafford in conjunction with highways.
Okay, I will, and think I had flagged that that material for us to look into for 2020. Richard, do you mind if you had that written up? Do you mind sending me so I can make sure we create
Well,
what
I
you
was looking
asked
at
for?
3 other products, so MG30, I don't think even I have had a chance to research it. Is that the vegetable oil based product, or is that something else?
There's canola based oil. We did dust trials in Meadow Lake Provincial Park of 1 kilometer of it. Smells like French fries, attracts bears and potholes very easily.
The one product I looked at was calcium chloride, and it's mixed, I think, with magnesium hydroxide, and it's supposed to stay hard during the rain, and they apply it hot so that it embeds itself into the road. But I think we should at least look at some options as to compared to what we're doing right now.
Okay, so Richard, if you can share that with Diane, and then we can put it on the radar to see what
Sure.
what we're looking at. Anything else, Richard?
No, that's everything.
Okay, Ron.
Nope, nothing from here.
Alrighty, we're going to move on. First one under old business. The meat fund allocation projects. I'm wondering if we can maybe discuss this. There's some information that was passed out this past week. 5 of the people had replied. As the email this morning or yesterday that I sent out, I purposely did not reply to it. And then when I did, I buggered up and did not include the first 4 items. So I have redone mine, but I think I would like to ask for a little maybe latitude, if you will. Can we discuss this? And come to a little bit of a decision before we make a motion?
I think Merlin, that is allowed by our procedure bylaw at the discretion of the chair.
Okay. So I think I would like to maybe do that. Does anyone have any disagreement to that?
No.
Jessica, could you pull up that, the list of the items and the cost? That's the only place I've got it, so. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through the first 4 items. I mistakenly did not include those. Those were items that were approved on our 2020 budget, but were taken off because of the extra costs for all the COVID stuff, the lack of income from rentals, etc., from the COVID stuff. These were chosen to be taken off of or removed from the budget at this time. So those are the first 4 items that kind of got not fallen from the way, they're fallen by the wayside, but just removed from our 2020 budget just because of some extra costs because of the COVID.
Yeah, what we did with these 4 items is, council will remember, we had the discussion about just holding off on them until we figured out what the impact would be. And we figured out the impact will be somewhere in the range of that $175,000 to $200,000. So in order to go ahead with them and not end up with a deficit, which we're not allowed to have at the end of the year, our recommendation would be that you utilize these extra funds to offset the potential deficit and still do the planned work plan for 2020.
Okay. So, for the 4 people had responded to include all of these 4 items. The parks mower, valve replacement, hydrant replacement, and the public works storage improvements. How does everyone feel about proceeding with this? Keep in mind, there's $768,000 of the MEP allocation money that we have to play with, if you will.
Just a comment, when I put them on my list, and I'm not saying I'd take them off, I just assumed they were done. They were the first priority, and we had no choice but to include them. But anyway, that was just a comment.
We definitely haven't necessarily done the work on these, but they are sort of ready to get going, especially the hydrant and valve work. So if you weren't going to do them, I'd want to know immediately, because there was a lot of prep work that went into these, and we did try to pause them just to see where the finances ended up, but they were planned expenditures. For something like the mower, it was at budget time deemed important enough to include in the budget, but we have quotes that are good until the end of this week, but we haven't purchased it yet.
Okay.
Is it fair enough to go through? I'll go through the first 4 items and just get a yay or nay on each one. Is that fair enough with everyone? Diana, is that a good enough process for that?
That works fine by me, yeah. Okay,
the parks mower. That was the first item that was removed. Looking to bring back on $30,000 as long as the estimate or the quotation is still valid. Is there anyone that is not in favor of taking this out of a portion, or this portion out of the MEP allocation? Everyone is good with it? Okay. The next one is valve replacement. These are the valves that allow to isolate water leaks and stuff. This is a project that the city's been working on for a number of years. If there's a water break, they're able to isolate it down to a smaller area rather than, like, I don't even remember how long ago it was, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, when we lost the whole water tower because of a valve. We couldn't remove that. Was just one of the major things. Is there anyone not in favor of proceeding with the replacing of the water valves? If you think I'm taking this too long, stretching it out, just tell me and we can move along quicker. I don't have a problem with it. Next one is replace fire hydrants. Does that include repair fire hydrants, Diana, or is that replacement?
I believe that these are the items that were in the capital budget, so they should be the replacement of fire hydrants. And Jessica could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a section in the operating budget for the repair and maintenance.
Because I do see fire hydrant repairmen around town.
They were doing hydrant flushing and some repairs on hydrants, but I believe we have an operating item for that.
Okay. So is there anyone not in favor of the fire hydrant replacement? It's kind of an important thing if there's a fire and we don't have a hydrant to hook up to. Complete the storage improvements over Public Works. Is there anyone not in favor of proceeding with this? Okay, looks like all 4 of those. Then there were a bunch of items on there that were set forth. There was some updated pricing. Probably the 2 biggest ones of the updated pricing was the Lions Park walking path. There's some information there with the reasoning behind the depth of the lays versus just doing a thin lay over top of the root system or the roots, especially on by the golf course. The city engineer and the paving foreman went out and they felt that doing a 4-inch lay on that area, 2-inch lay on the rest of it would not allow the root system to come through. Another of the big items was the snow blower attachment, went from 113 to 152. How do you want to proceed with this? Do you want to just go down line by line? Everyone has put in their opinions. There's only so much.
We could do that, or I believe we have the list based on the submissions that each individual counselor made in advance of the meeting.
Yeah.
If you'd like to see that, we did kind of whittle it down, I believe, to what had the most support. But and then you could discuss amongst those options, but that's just one option to try to make it a little bit shorter.
Okay. Let's just go down. Let's do the two big things first. The Lions Park walking path. We had originally had thought of $75,000 with the 1-inch overlay, and because of the root system. Current pricing, including replacement of bad culvert, $192,600. Is there anyone not in favor of moving ahead with this one?
I'm kind of in favor of it, but I think 4 inches of asphalt over top of that is overkill. That's what you'd put on a primary weight highway. And if you're talking about because you're going to go thick just so the roots don't come through, I think if that's a problem, just take something and cut down so you cut through the roots and separate them. It just seems like overkill.
Did we look at using any kind of soil sterilant?
Well, you'd probably, if you use a soil sterilant, it'll go back up into the,
It'll kill the
tree, right?
Yeah.
Depends on what it is. Sometimes it'll just kill the part of the root that's.
Yeah, I just thought if you went down deep enough, almost like with a pavement saw, if you've got shallow roots and cut through them, so just to separate them to keep them from going. But, you know, I understand like some of the poor areas, you could fix some of them with thicker asphalt, but to overlay 2 inches, that's 50 millimeters over the course of that whole walking path. That's what you do on a highway. And I mean, if you look at the pounds per square inch of a tire of a vehicle, is a lot higher than the footprint. That's just my opinion. I don't necessarily agree on, you know, 2 inches of asphalt. I think when they came back and said 1 inch, I mean, the price he had came forward with, you know, per square meter works out to about $170 a ton, which is in line with, you know, something you'd put on a highway if you got a major contract. Those prices vary from 130 to 180 a ton. He would be at 170. So, I mean, the price is right. It's just the quantity, in my opinion, might be overkill.
Could we set the budget at 125 and let them do the best they can with that?
Yeah, because
I like that idea.
I like that idea, Glenn.
Yeah,
And,
I agree.
if you get down to an inch, 1.5 inches, maybe 2 in certain areas where they think there's more need. But yeah, I remember when you were saying that 4 inches is a primary highway, and you know, just to deal with the roots, I think there's other ways we could deal with roots.
Well,
to
I'd
mitigate
be
it.
curious when that was first constructed. I thought it was maybe 2 inches of asphalt when they laid it down, I'm not for certain. But, I mean, all the strength comes from underneath, but that's just my opinion.
I
I
think
would-
I think the sub base is pretty good. Like the worst part is just the roots and where there's water problems.
Yeah, and I mean, some of those areas you could go thicker if you wanted to, but I would look at a different way of controlling the roots. If you're gonna put asphalt on at $20 a square meter just to keep the roots from coming through, I'm sure an old chainsaw with a blade can cut down through dirt and cut the roots so they just don't continue growing for a while.
Yeah, you just do a regular cut job on it, and I think they rot underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the 125 that you could probably deal with the extra culverts and maybe a little bit, maybe you get to them an inch and a half or something, but it's not 4. And it gives them enough.
I
flexibility.
can comment on the culverts. The quote for the culverts, there was replacing 4 that are at negative grade and putting 1 in a really bad spot. And that was about $3,000.
Okay.
I just feel like we're patching 9th Avenue and 3rd Street East, and they're very busy streets and people are bouncing over them all the time, and we're picking the bad spots and patching them. I think the walking path, I know it's well used, but it could be patched rather than, we don't have that standard for our busy streets. I'm not sure we need that standard for a walking path.
The holes in the streets, Glenn, slows the traffic down though.
They dodge. Anyway.
So what does everyone wish?
I could live with 125. They could come up with a design to accommodate that.
I would too.
I like that idea.
Yeah,
Can I
125.
ask for a clarification on that won't be in the resolution that you guys are going to consider? And I don't want to get down into the nitty gritty too much, but do you want the 125 to give some sort of treatment to the entire walking path?
Yeah.
Use the engineer.
Including the replacement and
The culvert.
installation of the culverts as well.
I think the culverts have to be done regardless for sure. I just wanted to make sure you wanted some sort of overlay on the entire structure.
Yeah, the entire path, I think some of it anyway, that's the design should handle that.
Okay, so 125 with the culverts, pardon me. Let's move down to the next one, the snow blower attachment. Sorry, not the next one, but one that there was quite a change in the costing of. So originally it was at 113,000. The new price came in at 152,840. And on the bottom of that, there was a whole bunch of different options that could be added on. Diana had a discussion. Yep.
Can I
Go ahead.
speak to this one?
Yep.
I just wanted to speak to a little bit of the change. So when the quote had been provided in 2018 for the 2019 budget, I believe, it was for a different loader that we no longer have. And so not that costs don't go up, but part of the increase is that it's a bigger machine for a bigger piece of equipment. And well, we thought we wouldn't request any of the additional options, or when I asked for that clarification last week, I was told we don't need them. The public works manager did come back to sit today and say that the hydraulic chute would be something he would be interested in. But those were the two. And then I think the mayor had asked a question in email. We only have one quote at this time because it hasn't been an approved purchase. So we typically don't move to what we require for the purchasing policy until we get some sort of approval to move forward on it. Because it wasn't approved in the budget and it hasn't been approved for purchase yet. We just got an idea to be able to put a valid number in there. Does that make sense?
The reason I asked, when I was looking at the sanding machines, I noticed the same company sells front mount snow blowers as well. So that's why I asked if there was an additional quotes.
No, but it is of the threshold that we would get 3 at minimum before purchasing, or at least try to if they're available.
Okay. So what does everyone wish on this?
Well, I originally supported it, but I don't anymore.
Tom?
Well, I still would support it. I think it's, I mean, when I listen to the boy, you know, the people in the city of this, especially this last winter and when we had snowmageddons a couple times where we get these massive piles of snow in the middle of the streets for weeks on end, and the issues that you know, safety and everything else. If we have a system that allows us to remove that snow fairly efficiently, I think it saves time and gets it done. And hopefully the city staff have time to do other things. And if they have the piece of equipment can really move that forward, I think I would certainly support it.
Okay. Richard, you originally were, and you changed. Curtis?
Do you think it'd be good to give a number and let the manager or the city administrative staff get to that number like we just did? Do we say 120? Do we say 125 again and make it happen? I don't know. We're not in the ballpark, Diana.
We have looked for 2.5 years for something used, and nothing has ever come up. So while I understand with the overlay of the walking path that is a little bit different of a project, we do have, this is the cost from a dealer as to what it would cost. We just might not get it is the problem. And then what do we do with the money? Because we're supposed to get this money from the province, right?
Yeah. So with the hydraulic chute, 7,700, you're looking at about 161,000. That's from one quote, but I don't think it matters how many quotes you get. If it's the comparable machine, it's going to be comparable pricing as well.
Yeah.
If you have something that's 160,000 and the next guy's quoting 110,000, chances are there's going to be a difference.
And I did just quickly the map, that 7,700 with PST added in, you were almost bang on, Mayor. It's $161,002.
Okay, call me a liar for $2.
I was pretty impressed you did that in your head. I wasn't calling you a liar.
No,
Because I had to use a calculator.
Snow removal and grass cutting are kind of the two that we probably feel the most complaints about. So I guess I could support it if it makes it more efficient. I'm with Tom on that.
Okay. Ron, sorry I missed you on the list here.
No worries. I would agree with Tom. I support this just to get that, you know, like I say, the amount of comments and complaints we had about the snow. I'm not sure if these attachments can be added on later if we need to bite the bullet on the whole thing, or kind of see how it works off the start and then add attachments as necessary. But I think you know, like Tom had said, just to save time in the overall grand scheme of things of removing snow properly and quickly, I would support
it. Okay. Curtis, you already said. Conrad?
No, I don't support it.
Okay. Glenn?
Yeah, for the reasons that were already mentioned, and I would add safety. I think the piles of snow in the middle, there's a risk there of an accident happening in a variety of ways. So I think for 6 months a year, it's a good investment.
Okay. My thoughts on it are, I support it, but I'm just looking at the different options here. It's only used in the wintertime. You're going to need a oil heater for the engine, unless they're going to park it inside a heated shop or leave it inside a heated shop. It's got a motor on it, so you've got to keep the engine warm. Hydraulic oil heater, that's $274. and 381 is 660. And I don't know what all these other, I know Conrad was mentioning about the carbide plating chutes and stuff. It would be more longevity of the lifespan of it, but is it worth it to do it now? The flip side of it is, do we look for, sorry, I'm going to back up just a little bit. If we get this, then our contracted services for the trucks is going to increase more, correct? Because we only have three trucks that can move the snow. So I know that's what our plan is, to get the streets cleaned quicker, but how much more of an impact to the contracted services is that going to be if we use this all of the time? I'm just looking at both sides of it.
We have done a little bit of analysis of the contracted services, and because it was, so right now we do the same thing. We budget, I think there's $25,000 in the budget for contracted services for snow removal. Up until 3 years ago, it was 2,500, and we just spent what we needed as the snow fell. But it would be a similar thing where we hire the trucks to help us haul off. And we actually think that this won't increase the requirement. Some years we do more than the 25,000, and some years we don't even meet the 25,000. It really depends on the volume of snow that falls. But the other thing was, I did go through with the public works manager, and he said the only thing he would ask for is the hydraulic chute, but he did say they could attempt it without at first, and see if they could go back and go back and purchase it after, if they felt like they needed it.
Okay.
And I think that covers your comments, Mayor, but I missed, I apologize.
Well, I'm thinking if we are going to go ahead with this, the hydraulic chute, that way you're not peeing around making adjustments to your truck and having to build a bunch of sidewalls on the truck. I know the city ones that we've used with that orange one that we got from Kozlowski's, they had to do some improvisations to the truck boxes, and I think if the hydraulic chute, if we are proceeding with it, would make it easier, as well as
It's going to be mandatory. If you're going to order that, you need a hydraulic chute. If a truck pulls up there that's higher than the next one, and you can't lift the chute up to pour it into the back, then you're out of luck. If truck's on the edge of a snowbank or something, it's higher or lower, you need that to direct it, or you'd have to manually turn it somehow. I don't even know how. All the ones I've seen are hydraulically controlled.
Yeah. So the hydraulic chute, as well as the oil heaters. Sorry, this country you need in hydraulic oil.
That was the
Are
item.
they going to store it?
Sorry, Merlin. It would be stored in the shop.
Would be stored in the heated shop. Okay. Then maybe not so much. Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses.
Yeah, I counted 4 yeses, 2 noes, but I didn't quite get what your vote was, Merlin.
I said yes.
So then it's 5 against 2 for that one.
5 and 2.
And we will still do a resolution with all these projects listed. So Jessica is keeping track of that.
So what total did you come up for that?
I had 161,000.
161.
Okay.
That leaves us with 287. Okay. Where were we at? You want to go back to the paving, or how would you like to do this?
Why don't we
Let's go to the
discuss?
top.
I was just gonna, Merlin, just a suggestion, have the discussion around the long-term care levy and have that one, because depending where that one goes, the discussion could be short on the rest.
Okay, long-term care. It was brought up at our last meeting to offset the cost of the long-term care for 1 year. Rough figures, 244,000. I'm gonna go down the list. Glenn,
Unmute him.
Glenn, are you there, Glenn?
I would just do a portion of it. I would save each homeowner $75 rather than 125. They're getting something, and the rest, I think, next we're gonna go to pavement. And I'm not sure we can afford the 244. So it would be kind of a token effort. You could even go $50, but I think people would just mock 50. So $75 out of the 125. Am I correct? It's 125, the levy?
It is
Yeah.
125.
So I would, or split it or something, but that would be, again, I know I'm being wishy-washy about it, but I think it would be something in their pocket and the rest go to pavement.
And I would just refer to the city clerk to see if she could get the figure that the number of long-term care levies we charge, to figure out what that will actually come out to for this purpose.
Well, if I take the
Figured out
244 and
244
divide by
divided by-
125 is 1952.
Okay.
Times $75 is
It's a-
146.
So I saved 100,000 for pavement.
Okay, that's your suggestion, Glenn. Conrad?
I mean, this money come to us as a result of COVID-19. So in my sense, everybody suffered from it. We've raised our taxes, we've raised our utilities. This is something that I thought would be my highest priority of $244,000 that could show the residents. I mean, a lot were laid off, a lot couldn't have businesses open. I mean, it's not much, it's only $125, but I think it's a gesture because of COVID-19, and you know, everybody suffered throughout this. I mean, whether you bought groceries and they were higher, whether you didn't have a business open, you couldn't buy this in town, stuff like that. I just thought it was my highest priority. And I mean, I would defer a lot of other projects to have this one go through, and that's just my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Conrad. Curtis, what's your thoughts?
I would vote against putting anything towards this. I think this is a cost that's not going anywhere. Prolonging it 1 year on after the pandemic and just adding it to the end of the project, the cost is still going to be there. I think people would like to see something of benefit for everybody. I understand this is a dollar out of the pocket, but this would be hard for me to say next year it's back on after taking it away. So I would say nothing to this one.
Just to contradict you, Curtis, it doesn't add another year's payment on. You take 244,000, you lose a year of payment, right?
This year, it's still not going.
No, you still fund it. You fund it with $244,000 of provincial money that goes into our long-term care trust agreement, right? Wasn't that the intent?
So one of the proposals was that you could skip the long-term care levy this year, and that could go, like, we would still get the funds from the province, and that would go, we believe, into reserve. We haven't asked specifically the question because we do cost share this project with the province, but it doesn't necessarily add a year, you're right, onto what we would have to raise. But then again, I think Curtis's comment is also correct that you'd be taking it away in 2020 to bring it back in 2021. Because we would still need to have this levy in place for a number of years to complete the.
That's correct.
The project.
Yeah, my thought was just to give somebody a break this year.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Okay. Richard?
I think if we play with it. I think it just confused people. They'll wonder why their taxes went back up $50 next year.
Okay,
So is that a no?
That's a no.
Tom?
Yeah, I think I'd be a no too. I don't think we'd go partial. I mean, this is a commitment that probably is gonna be, I don't know the number, but it's 6, 7, 8 years. We're gonna have this levy until, you know, the lodge, long-term care is, our funding commitment's fully done. I recognize what Conrad said as far as, you know, a one-time $125, I guess, a tax break, if you want to call it that. Also, on the other side, I would think that, you know, the fact is that if we're talking about a stimulus, which was sort of part of the issue around the funding, I'm not sure that a small tax break is a stimulus, but I guess it might be. But I also think we may have an opportunity maybe to, you know, I don't see times getting really great in the next 2 or 3 years in our economy. It's going to take a while to do that. Times are going to be tight in the city too. This might be a chance to do that little extra, purchase something like a snow blower or whatever, where probably wouldn't be in the next 5 years. So from that point of view, I would say we look at these things that that's not the levy. I would say no.
Okay, Ron?
That's a tough one because everybody brings up a good point. I mean, but I think you know, when it comes, we'll get their tax assessment. They've budgeted for the taxes to come due when the statement comes out. Although, I mean, giving people a break is, I like Glenn's idea of having it, but I think I'd say no to this one too.
Okay. And I'm going to say yes to it. Because as Conrad mentioned at our last meeting, giving back to everyone in the community would be a good way in my mind to use some of this free money, if you will. Not necessarily free money, but basically, but it also allows us to purchase some capital stuff that normally funding does not allow us to do. So, but in the long run, just for maybe the ease of everyone in the community, possibly not everyone has faced lots of hardships because of the COVID, but there are a lot of people that have been laid off. Some of them, they're served money, they're making more money sitting on their backsides at home watching TV rather than working. But there's a lot of businesses that have been and are going to be suffering. So if we can help alleviate a little bit of it, I know it's only $125, but that's a month's worth of power for somebody. So I'm going to say yes.
I just want to clarify though that the $125 doesn't go back to any businesses because they don't pay it.
Homeowners.
But
Correct,
the
it's on
majority,
residential units.
but the majority of the business people are homeowners within the community. There's lots of people from the RM and other communities as well, but the majority I would say are Meadow Lake residents.
So if I've tallied it correctly, then I have 3 in favor to some degree with Glenn's suggestion of cutting it down to $50 for this year, and I have 4 against it.
Yep. Glenn, did you say 50 or 75?
I thought take it from 125 and cut it down $75.
I don't think it makes any difference with a 4-3 vote. And I'm comfortable with that. After listening to the arguments, that's fine. I won't debate the point of no is fine with, I'm okay with that.
Okay,
Make it 5-2.
5-2. All right, paving. It looks like everyone, but Councillor Paylor was in favor of the utility patches. Do we need to discuss it more? Utility patches, or what are you saying?
That's all good.
Just go by our list.
I think the list would have the increase to the utility patches, the additional excavation on 3rd Street East, and the spot mill and pave on Highway 55, correct, Jessica?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
those ones all had a majority in favor of them.
Yeah. So that's 109.
What's our total right now?
We
For
are
about
at,
490. 490.
$178 left over.
I think it's a bit more than that.
I had 287,083 left over before we started discussing the pavement.
So
Yep, and
just
if
to
we do,
confirm
and if we
that,
do 59,000 for the utilities, the 11,000 for additional excavation, and the spot mill and pave on Highway 55 was 39,000. I come up with 109.
Yeah. I had 178,083 if I took off 59,000 from 11,000 from 39, but we could maybe. Jessica, do you have a total?
I had 178.85 because I didn't have the $2 on the snow blower, but
Yeah, I'm at 178.
Okay, so then with those 3 paving items, that's what we have left to determine to spend.
178.
178, yep.
And I do want to speak to that solar, just because of the math. If you bought solar power, you would break even, you'd get $20,000 roughly, $20,000 a year for 25 years, or $500,000 back. That's the math. And so the money wouldn't be gone. You'd be getting it back over the next 25 years to the tune of 500,000. So that's the only reason I have that there, is when I listen to those people doing that, it makes money for the jurisdiction. And that's why I know I'm the only one there, but that's the math behind it. I don't see any of our other projects paying us back money.
And Glenn, my comment to that would be definitely that was one of the reasons that we wanted to bring it back up for consideration, because I know when it was considered for budget last year, it was right around when the net metering program had been canceled and the new program hadn't been announced yet. But the other thing that we've learned as we've looked into these things, my only comment on this is that there might be some other grants that would be available to do the retrofit to get some solar power at the arena.
Yeah.
From other sources. And I think we found a couple of options late last week through the federal government. So
The reason I brought it up, when there's only 178 and it's 223 or whatever, you've got whatever the estimate is, and I'm sure it's an estimate, but exactly that. I think the grants could make up the difference. The federal government had grants when we first when I listened to it back in the fall, there were federal. So anyway, and I understand there's lots of good places, but there, I said my piece. Thank you. Goodbye.
All right. Anything else in the paving that you want to add in?
it's unlimited.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that. Is there anything in the paving that we as a group should be adding into here?
So we're not looking at the overlay of the concrete at the intersection on Highway 55.
So what we determined about the overlay of the putting asphalt over the concrete was that the concern that was raised that it'll just get pushed out. And so we've looked into it a little bit more, and there might be some different options, but likely what you'll see is a proposal for 2021 budget. We know that there are some crack sealing materials that you can use on concrete, but when we found out sort of mid to late last week, we weren't able to get a quote on a firm quote on that. So well, it still does appear, because we proposed it originally, we don't think the 35 millimeter asphalt overlay would be the proper thing to do on the concrete.
Okay. That quote that you were trying to get, is that what they did or Beg 4 did on that one
No.
section? No?
No, what Beg 4 did on the one section, we weren't impressed with the results on.
Okay.
I think
Do you
what there
remember
is.
what that was called?
Yeah, I did went to the thing. I was pretty impressed by it, but
I have to, I'd have to go back through my notes, because I did a lunch and learn about it, but it was pre having twins, and my mind draws a blank right now. So.
The only reason I ask is because they're at the card lock we're building, there was quite a few deficiencies in the concrete when it came time to the end of the project here, and they're actually they may even have done it tonight. They're doing but I can't remember the product name, and it's supposed to increase the longevity of the concrete, and it's supposed to be sort of the go-to thing right now. Maybe something to look into, but I'd have to get the info from the contractor.
Okay. So
name of
nothing
the
else.
product was MG Crete.
Yeah, that sounds maybe like it. MG Crete.
You'll check tomorrow maybe, Ron, and then you can get back.
Yeah, you bet. I have to go out there tomorrow morning anyway.
Okay. Okay, moving down the list. I'm just gonna go down. Next one that had any indication was a new sanding box on a used truck. Sorry, replace sanding truck, new sanding box on a used truck.
I originally had this on my list, but since majority of people are supporting the snow blower thing, I take my sanding box amount out of there and support the snow blower.
Okay.
I'll reverse mine. Instead of you took my long-term levy away, I would support this truck.
I know Merlin had posed some questions about the possibility of getting a sanding box on a 1-ton. We did have the conversation internally, and the concern we would have is that it would vastly limit the quantity that you could carry. If you it wouldn't be this sanding box, it would be a smaller one, and it would probably cut down about 1/5 of what you could hold in the box, and would only get you through 4 to 6 intersections before you'd have to go and refill it.
So we have a truck that could hold it, and that's not a problem. This would get the job done, 114.
114 would get us a used truck and a new box.
And a box. Because the
But it
current
would
one's
replace
rusted
an
out.
entire unit. It would replace what we have as a truck and a box now.
And it hasn't had salt, and it's not rusted out. The used one we're buying isn't rusted. They're really susceptible to rust, are they not?
Yeah, it's a used truck. It's a 2018, I believe it was, an International.
Yeah.
2018 International and a new box. The question I had for Diana today was, or in the email, Central Services has a skid in the back of a 1-ton, and that's where Diana's going with 1/5 of the capacity and having to fill up the box more often. My thought on that was we've got an F350, I believe it is, that they use for hauling a half a bucket full of snow every once in a while in the wintertime. It's mainly used in the summer that I'm aware of. If we could get even a smaller skid to put on there, it would save us buying a new or used truck. And worst case scenario, buy two of the boxes and buy another used 1 ton that can be used for other stuff in the summer.
But
I just
still
added
decreases
that
your
in about the
capacity
second box.
by about 3/5, right?
Sorry, what was that?
You still decrease your capacity by more than half, getting 2.
One thing you're gonna find with that, highways tried a bunch of these. And one thing you're gonna find is you're gonna be putting front ends and rear suspensions in these trucks. I mean, if you're using that as your primary sanding truck, long-term, you're gonna be putting in front ends and rear suspensions in them. They're just
So
too light.
Conrad, you're talking like an F-350, what I was talking about?
Yeah, no, we've had them, we've tried them. We've tried mounting plows on the fronts of these plastic plows. And yeah, same thing, to utilize them at airports, to utilize them on small sections. And we tried that for a lot of years, and we don't do it no more, because you start sacking out suspensions and breaking springs, taking out differentials. And as your primary sanding truck, I mean, if you got this used truck with the sanding box, what you probably could do eventually is that sanding box could be removed. And what I would do is order another box with a front auger on it that you could put asphalt in it for the summertime. So you could go around, stop at a pothole, just like, let's say, the highway trucks, auger some out there, move up to the next one. You could fill a lot of potholes in a day, instead of walking to the back of a 1 ton or to the front of a loader and shoveling it out with a shovel. I mean, if you started, this box can be removed, and that was one of the prices. If you wanted, the extra cost was for legs for this box. So you take it off, it goes on legs, and then you put your other box you use in the summertime on there.
And I think that was about $3,000 for 3,300.
I wouldn't buy legs now. If you did approve this, I would wait until you decided to fund another box, find one that'll hook up to the hydraulics, and then buy the legs.
Mhm.
Okay, makes sense. No, I was just asking about, because that, like the 1 ton or even an F-550, if that's capable, but going by your experience, Conrad, I'm not gonna argue. I was just asking the question.
Well, no, that skid in the back of government services truck, I mean, we fill it up with sand and salt. That's where they get it from. It holds 3/4 of a ton. They've had lots of problems with it, not just with the truck, but with the auger system freezing up, a vibrating system that doesn't work. In my opinion, it's maybe made for parking lots.
Okay. Nope, fair enough. Okay, so we're sitting at 114 for used truck with a new sanding box. Is there anyone that is not in favor?
Well, I pulled it out of my list, but I don't have a problem with it, obviously, and I won't fight against any equipment that we have.
Okay, so
I had it on my list, and I would leave it there, especially after listening to Conrad.
Yeah. Okay. 114, so we're left with 64. I'm just gonna open it up. Where are we at here? Sanding truck. Sewer camera doesn't quite cut it there. Any suggestions?
Well, I know it's over the budget amount, but the sewer main inspection camera, I think in the long run, we'd probably save a lot of contract money if we did buy it. But I'm not sure who would operate it.
We would, I believe we asked this question really close to the end of the day, but the intention would be, because it's mostly for asset classification, that it would be the asset management coordinator mostly doing it. And the other comment would be is if we don't fund the full amount from this, we could make it, say, for 2021, and we could bring the remainder of the cost and propose it for the budget. Because we do have until March 31st of 2022 to spend this money.
Just that we have to have the list in by the mid-July, is it?
Yeah, we have to have it in by mid-July, and because we wanted to get an answer on the extra paving and setting the long-term care levy and that kind of thing. We did want most decisions done. But if you did want to do it, we could put it on the list for this remainder of 64,000, and we would propose the difference for the 2021 budget, and we wouldn't purchase the sewer camera till 2021.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
like-
School, Ron?
I like that idea, yeah.
Like that, as long as we have a qualified operator that can run that camera and doesn't get it stuck like they did at Auto and Tractor last year for a week.
Yes, yes. So definitely, and as we said, when we originally had looked at proposing this, it was a unit that needed a vehicle and needed certification classes and stuff. And this is a different option that doesn't require a degree to operate.
So Ron, you're good with that? Tom?
Yeah, I had it on my list originally, and I was sort of thinking like Richard, that there was some cost savings down the road, and that there are some immediate benefits. So, and moving it to next year and maybe fully funding it then, that's great with me.
And then like the only, and I don't want to interrupt before everybody's got their say on this, the only other comment would be, I think there was a couple people who, Jessica, were there a couple people who had the sidewalk grinder?
I did. Richard did.
There were.
I have-
That's probably something that could also very easily be fit into a 2021 equipment budget.
I was just trying to get mine to balance to the numbers. So people that submitted the lower projects of 5,000 and 10,000 kind of fell from my wish list. So
It was amazing how easily we could come up with $4 million worth of projects, to be honest.
oh yeah.
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 The other project that had a number of votes that you could set aside some money for your 2021 budget was the aeration cell maintenance at 151,000.
Yeah,
But,
I'd like to,
but the other comment we have on this is that when it wasn't proposed for the 2020 budget, it was on the recommendation that we would bring it forward for a proposal for 2021.
Yes.
With more information, yeah.
Okay, so we're good with the camera. Conrad?
Yeah, no, I'd go for that.
And Tom's good. Glenn? Sorry.
He's muted.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Curtis?
Yeah, I think we're already there, but I'm good too.
Okay, and then just a mention of the grinder, sidewalk grinder. If it's something that's gonna be used, my thought is to put it in there. It's $5,000. Let's put it in there, and we can work instead of the $26,000 in next year's budget for the camera. We'll make it 31,000 for next year.
And that's what I was thinking, is we could purchase the sidewalk grinder this year.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Purchase it this year and just offset that extra 5,000 onto the budget for next year. And that gets us pretty damn close to 768.
Jessica, are you able to pull up on the screen what the projects are so that we can have a
Yeah.
resolution from this so that we can sign the agreement? And
There. Am I sharing the right screen?
I can see it.
You're missing mine. Well, you got to try.
I have note of which projects are included under that 109,000 for paving, but for the grant, we are just going to have it as our 2020 paving contract.
Okay. And we've got the ones highlighted anyhow, so. Would someone like to make a motion in regards to the Municipal Economic Enhancement Fund program allocation money of $768,085?
Glenn.
Who said that?
Glenn?
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Oh, what? You
gotta make the motion and list them all.
Yeah, read the motion off, please, Ben.
Be careful.
Who's watching? It's all there in front of you. It's right there. As listed on the screen.
The above approved projects. There you go.
Okay,
I'll second it.
second by Richard. Do you have any other comments, Glenn? Probably not, because you couldn't read the whole recommendation anyhow.
Just that the total amount of the numbers that we've approved there, the total should be in the resolution.
And the way I see it, sewer camera is the floater, that if something comes in under or over the sewer cameras, the camera can be changed to, so we
Next
max
year.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna
So
top
the
it up anyway, so it can be the filler.
Okay. And Richard seconded it. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor as the recommended by, in part by Glenn? Anyone opposed to this? That's carried. Thanks for the long discussion on that one, but it is quite important to make sure that we get this in on time so we can do this. Carrying on, old business, long-term care levy bylaw. I'm glad we waited until it was strategically placed till after the MEEP funding. Someone willing to bring this to our second reading? I'm just getting down here.
Curtis,
Curtis?
bylaw number 6, 2020, a bylaw to establish a long-term care facility levy be given a second reading.
Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
Second by Richard. Curtis, do you have anything?
No, carry on.
Okay, Richard, do you have anything?
Nope.
Anyone else? All in favor of giving it a second reading? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. We have the option to bring it for a third reading. Someone interested in bringing that forward?
I'll move that bylaw number 6, 2020, a bylaw to establish a long-term care facility levy be read a third time and adopted.
We have a seconder.
I'll
Thomas.
second it.
Okay. Good. Ron.
Second by Tom. Anything to add, Richard?
No,
Tom?
No,
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor of? Is there anyone opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to, at our last meeting with Minister Carr, we were instructed to prepare as normal for a fall election. This basically gave the administration and returning officers time to get things ready. And for any candidates that are interested to bring their name forward. So at the last Minister Carr meeting, this is what they told us. So our administration has come up with this. Someone like, it's not really,
Was there
I'll
any,
make a motion then that administration be directed to look at some of the following be provided for the 2020 municipal election, that the remuneration rates for municipal election workers be reviewed, that the number of election workers be increased for the 2020 election at the discretion of the returning officer, and that additional advance polls be established to encourage distancing of voters, and that amendment be drafted to the mail-in ballot bylaw to allow for more options for the witnessing of voter declarations and options other than in-person registration.
okay. Sorry, do you have a seconder for that?
I'll
I'll
second.
second it.
Okay. Just a little discussion. Things can change with the COVID. Not sure where it's going. They just wanted to basically give us a heads up that things are going to move forward as planned and planned for an election in the fall. Diana, do you want to talk about where the different options and what needs to be done, what can be done, what has to be changed to make things work?
Like my comment would be that yes, they're planning that the municipal election goes ahead, but the comment has been that it goes ahead with likely physical distancing provisions still in place. Of course, we have rented out the Civic Center at this time. It is being used as the testing and assessment center, and we don't have a date for when that might not be the case. However, as Jessica notes in the report, we have tentatively booked the Alliance Church for the general election day for a cost of $200. And we can, I think, cancel it up until sometime in the fall if we needed to. But unless you make a recommendation otherwise, the city clerk is your returning officer. I would let her speak to it. We discussed all of the options and put forward what the recommendations of what we'd look to do, but of course nothing is set in stone by this resolution.
Okay. Jessica, do you have anything to add to that, or do we have to decide whether we're going to have Jessica be the returning officer? How does that work, Diana?
So the default is for the city clerk to be the returning officer, and there's an option in there that if you wanted it to be otherwise, you would have to.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of options in this report. The default is that we just will not do them unless one or more counselors would like us to do them, in which case, and there's deadlines for those in July and August, which is why I'm bringing this to you now, so we can meet timelines if there is interest. That's things like changing how your ballot is set up, using a voters list, having a bylaw around advertising and campaign expenses for your candidates, things that we have not typically seen a need for in our past elections, but certainly could implement if that was the desire of council. The wording in the recommendation is vague because I am still talking with my fellow city clerks and returning officers about the whole mail-in ballot bylaw process and how to run that as efficiently and contact-free as possible.
And I think that there'll likely be some discussions on that at the city mayor's caucus level, Merlin. I think there might be some requests of the province that would require some changes in order for us to, say, operate it like the provincial election does, which allows for photocopies, and currently ours does not.
Mm-hmm.
Our city mayor's meeting is canceled tomorrow, just so you know, Dan.
Yeah, no, I did get that notification, but we figured for the next one they could discuss it.
Yep. Okay. So, like I said before, with everything else in the COVID, things can change around, but hopefully the province will keep us up to date on what we can and can't do, and the discussion with other municipalities. I'm sure there can be something figured out and make it as efficient as possible. So we had a Conrad made the motion. Richard second. All in favor of the recommendation as presented in regards to the election?
Yep.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Asset management grant proposal. I'm not even gonna ask you, Glenn, if you want to bring this one forward.
Wise choice.
So basically, they've found some funding that they're able to move forward with asset management framework and developing different ideas or different tools that the city can use. They went ahead and did a bunch of groundwork, if you will, and they're just looking for some help from the city to move it forward.
Yeah, and just a reminder that we did actually apply for this same grant in 2017 and were granted it. However, there is not a limit on the number of times that a municipality can apply for it. And realistically, based on the decision previously about buying the sewer camera, the vast majority of this time is actually staff time to do the work.
Timberland, I'll make the motion if you want to get it.
Okay, go ahead.
Cal, that the Meadow Lake City Council direct staff to apply for a grant from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program for the proposed project reaching a milestone for asset management, a signature model for northern communities, develop asset management framework, and that the City of Meadow Lake commits to conducting the following activities in its proposed project submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program to advance our asset management program that should the application be approved. On point, conducting condition and risk assessments of roads and sanitary sewer pipes with consideration of climate change impacts, updating the city's asset management software with the latest asset inventory and conditions asset data, assessment data, and developing a comprehensive asset management plan for roads and underground pipes with consideration of improving climate resiliency, and that the City of Meadow Lake commits $12,500 from its budget towards the cost of this initiative.
Do we have a seconder for that? Thanks, Conrad.
I'll second Tom.
Okay, anything further to add, Conrad?
No. No.
Tom?
No.
Okay, I just think this is something that they've been, the engineer and now Jake in the asset management side have been doing a lot of work, seeing what the underground infrastructure is looking like and able to capture what needs to be fixed and when it needs to be fixed and stuff like that. So I think it's just a good tool for moving ahead with the work that they're doing. All in favor of the recommendation as presented by Conrad? Is there anyone opposed? Or that's carried. Chamber of Commerce grant. We had some discussion at our previous meeting about the amount of funding for Chamber of Commerce. Work has been done by administration and this is what has come up with. Someone would like to bring this to the table so we can discuss.
I will. That the city pay $15,000 of the $25,000 operating grant to the Chamber of Commerce, and if the Chamber of Commerce is unable to hire summer students or open the tourist booth for the whole summer due to the pandemic restrictions, the grant will be reduced by up to $10,000.
That's a little confusing.
Yes, I'm just reading that. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Ron.
And sorry, we do understand that it is a little confusing, but we wanted to leave it open that as things open up, they might have the opportunity to hire the students. And if they did, we didn't want to limit that. And we do typically pay the $25,000 grant by this time in the year. So we did want to at least be able to forward on what we would give them as a grant immediately, and that the other 10,000 will be question mark once we have determined the outcome.
Yeah, and the only reason I say it's confusing, I understand that, but you could read it that the next 10 could come off, could be an additional 10. The way, but anyway, I know it's the $10,000 difference we're talking
Yeah,
about.
and we did present this, Councillor Dishko could speak to that. We did have a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce president and the administrator. And I think their comment was that it was, it seemed like a fair consideration. If
Yeah,
they weren't.
no, we understand. I think we understand. It's just that extra 10 that now it's funding the students.
Tom, I could have fixed that, but I wanted to read it exactly as it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Glenn.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor of the recommendation? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. Future meeting options. I guess we're to the point, being that City Hall is opened up today. Are we going to look at having, or when are we going to look at having live meetings, if you will, or?
I could comment a little bit. We did put a recommendation in there just so you'd have a recommendation from administration. But of course, there's alternatives. And so council had said, of course, at the last meeting that we would do the June 8th meeting and reassess for the end of June. So that means we have to decide tonight what we're going to do for the end of June meeting. And we would recommend, if you wanted to hold the meeting in person, that we hold it at the arena.
Okay. Does someone want to bring this forward with, and then we can have a quick discussion?
I will, council meeting, oh no, I wouldn't bring this forward because I'd like to have an in-person one, so.
There's alternate recommendations that you could make.
Oh, I'd do an alternate
Just
one.
scroll
then.
down.
So it's,
The
okay, there you go.
The council, the alternate one, yeah. It's still not one I
Go
want.
for A.
Which one, Tom? Which one?
Yeah. I would go in-person meetings, June 22nd at the arena.
Write down option A for him.
Yeah.
Option A.
So option A, you said, Tom?
Is that option A? Okay, option A. No, it. Okay, oh, sorry, yeah, option A. Council meetings temporarily moved to the Meadow Lake and District Arena beginning June 21st meeting to accommodate physical distancing.
You said June 22nd, right?
June 22nd.
June
Yeah.
22nd.
Yeah.
Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
Richard?
Richard.
Any discussion? Tom, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, these are fine. You're quite a good general running the ship there, but it is nice to be face to face.
Okay, Richard, do you have anything to add?
No, unless you want to leave some nets up there, we could practice some shots too.
I'm not bringing the bouncy castles in. How about?
Yeah. Anyone else have any comments? My personal feelings, I would prefer to stay with the Zoom just till things get opened up even more. I don't want to sound like a chicken shit or anything. I've had coffee with Tom and had discussions with Ron, but just I'm wondering if the way it is right now, I know the numbers are gatherings are up to 15 people indoors, but because we are, if all of us are present, plus Diana and Jessica and the two media, that takes us to 13. If there's anyone from the community there, we can't do it.
So
Am I
that's
correct?
That's not correct. This is considered an essential service. And so you are not beholden to the limits. What you have to be able to accommodate is physical distancing. So it's the same thing where city staff are not beholden to limit themselves to 10 people per building. We have been able to have staff meetings, but we've had to have them at the arena because we can accommodate 2 meters between everybody there. So we would be at 13 with all of those, but we could have an audience where people are spread out 2 meters still at the arena, on the floor of the arena for this. So we would not be breaking any of the rules.
Okay, no, that was my only concern, just the
There
number.
have been city councils that have maintained in person. The vast majority of them have gone digital. And I think we were split about half and half as to whether or not people were going to return to in person by June or July when we had the discussion last week. Many people were going to talk about it at this meeting. But.
Okay, any further discussion?
I kind of agree with Mayor Seymour on this too. I think it's too early. We're just entering into phase 3 right now. I think we're gonna have some big surprises coming up here. So that's just my opinion.
Saskatoon Airport today, 2 cases that flew into Saskatoon.
Yeah, people are gonna start relaxing, and I mean,
I think it's a second wave is going to come, and all hell's going to. Sorry, I don't want to sound negative. All hell's going to break loose, and we're going to take a backswing, and things are going to tighten up again. So I think we as the leaders of our community, I think we have to showcase that this isn't over yet. I don't want to sound that I know there's only an X amount of cases in the province right now, way more mini flu cases and way more many other cases of illness, but this has been in the forefront for the last 3 months. And I feel that we need to just kind of hold our own for now until things are virtually shut down. That's my thought.
We're following what the health regulations are with the distancing, and we're doing what we're asked to do, and we're modeling that. So I believe that the face-to-face, it's time.
Yeah, but if we're sitting inside the arena and people see that there's 10 or 12 or 14 vehicles outside, they're not going to walk in and see who it is. They're just going to say, well, them guys can do it. I know we're essential service, but why can the city do this? And then we turn around and tell the church group that they can't have 30 people in their church, or they can't play ball. They can't play ball because it's more of a group.
They will be playing ball. They are golf. Churches are opening.
Yeah, they are opening, but with how many people?
Hairdressers opening. We're staying 6 feet away. We're following the guidelines. And I think that's what we want to model, is go at the pace that we're told to go. And if it opens up, they'll change the guidelines. We've trusted them all along. I trust them now.
Okay. Any other comments?
We won't have any internet issues or connection issues at the arena.
Well, we would likely recommend that you download your agenda in advance, because believe it or not, City Hall has better internet than the arena does.
Okay.
You might have to look at boosting the router that's there, whatever it is.
Probably just much easier just to download it. Now that I figured it out after 1.5 years how to do it, it works pretty damn good.
You might have to tell me, Marlon. Yeah.
Because it will still be open to the public to attend, we wouldn't need to say broadcast it live on YouTube like we're doing now, which the reason we're broadcasting live on YouTube is just that that's how we present this as being open to the public.
Okay. Any other comments or questions, concerns? Okay, all in favor of moving to our next, or the recommendation, June 22nd to the arena? Anyone opposed? I'm opposed.
That's carried.
Okay, carried. Alrighty,
Sorry,
Looks like that-
I have an announcement for a thing that got missed earlier on the agenda, just before you guys move to close. With our proclamation at the beginning or closer to the beginning of the meeting, we are having a flag raising tomorrow at City Hall. Time will either be 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock, depending on if anybody is able to attend and has a strong preference. It's going to be socially distanced, so it'll be pretty low key, but did just want to make you aware of that option.
Just give me the time. If I'm around, I'll attend.
Was there a time that worked better for the representatives, Jessica, or did 10 or
Their preference was 12, but they said they could sneak away also
So
if
then-
you're
so
needed.
then say 12?
Okay.
Okay.
Bye tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. We have a couple things to discuss in camera this evening. Someone like to take us there, please.
Curtis,
Curtis, at
city
9 point.
close me to consider following items, a matter related to third-party confidential information, a matter related to contract negotiations, and a matter related to advice from officials.
We have a seconder,
I'll second. Ron?
second by Ron. All in favor? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much.